Good evening, everyone. And I'll call to order the City Council Committee meetings for August 1st, 2023. We'll begin with the roll call of members. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Ahmed. Mr. Royo.
Here.
Mr. Cleese.
Here.
Ms. Craig. Ms. Diaz. Ms. Walsh.
Here.
And President Baker.
Here. Councilors Ahmed, Craig, and Diaz are excused this evening. We have first the approval of the July 5th, 2023 committee meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any council comments on the minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Before we jump into our committee meetings, I have an announcement this evening. Item number 1 on the Community Planning Committee meeting agenda for 227 West James Street was withdrawn. We will not be discussing it at the meeting this evening. We now move to our Personnel Committee with Councilor Calixte.
Thank you, Madam President. The Personnel Committee has 4 items on the agenda for tonight. We have 4 nominations for appointment, and we have 2 nominations for appointment and 2 nominations for reappointment to discuss and review for tonight.
Go right ahead.
So the first nomination is Frank Vargas III for appointment to the Lancaster Airport Authority. I don't know if Mr. Vargas III is here with us tonight.
No, he's not here
No.
this evening.
Okay. I would like to ask the members of the committee if they have any comments or questions regarding this nomination. So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on August 8th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. And the next nomination is Sharon Nelson for reappointment to the Lancaster County Convention Center Authority. I think Sharon is not here with us tonight either.
No.
Any questions or comments regarding this nomination? No? So I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on August 8th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
And the next nomination is DJ Ramsey for reappointment to the Sign Commission. I think DJ is here with us. Would you like to share your thoughts on your nomination for tonight? Yeah.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight, DJ.
Yes.
So would you tell us why you want to continue to serve?
Sure. I enjoy serving the city in this very specialized, very niche way. And I enjoy making sure that the advertising in the city isn't overwhelming. I'll put it that way.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments?
Just
From
one comment,
council?
Councilor Calixte.
Please go ahead.
DJ is a communications manager for the city, but has served in this commission since before he was an employee. He has a background in design and has one of the most thorough understandings of our sign code out of anyone I've ever met. So I appreciate him serving in this capacity and the understanding that he brings to the role.
Thank you. Section 255 of the code is a thrilling read.
Any other comments or questions from council, from the public? Thank you, DJ, for your willingness to
Thank you.
continue to serve. I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on August 8th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
And the last nomination is Adam Taylor to the Noise Control Board. I don't know if Adam is with us here. Yeah, would you please come forward, Adam? Would you please introduce yourself and tell us why you want to serve on the board?
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. So I have been serving on the noise control board, I believe, for the last few years. service to the city which I love very dearly. I'm a 15-year resident of the city, a transplant, a business owner. I lived on the 0 block, Queen Street, and now I own a home out on the streets of and have a background in audio. So I believe I bring a number of valuable perspectives to look forward to that.
Adam, one of the things that the city residents complain about is the noise. You, as a city resident, now you have the opportunity to be on the board. Is there anything specific that you would like to accomplish during your term?
So, again, I served on the board for 3 years. Anything I would like to continue, I think I would like to continue striking a fair balance between the wants and needs of residents, right? To have the decent privacy, reasonable hours, with also the, what's so special about living in the city is that that's those are the things. I mean, living in Lancaster City, so yeah, it's just continuing that balance. Again, in terms of voice control, a lot of voice is outside of our, it's outside of the noise control
Yes.
control. But offering variances, especially with the fireworks, continue to be something that everyone likes, but is also managed.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments for Adam?
Thank you for your service.
And
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for helping us thread that very difficult, the needle there. Thank you.
thank you, Adam, for what you're doing. So now I'll make a motion to move this nomination to our next council meeting on August 8th.
Second.
All in favors?
Aye.
Aye. So that concludes the Personnel Committee, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Councilor Calixte. We now move to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Council President. We have 2 items on the agenda this evening. The first is Resolution Number 51, 2023, authorizing a grant application for the Water Street Bicycle Boulevard. And the second resolution is 52, 2023, authorizing a grant application for South Duke Street pedestrian safety improvements.
I'm it.
Will you be-
I'm standing in tonight for Mr. Campbell, who's
Wonderful.
not able to be here tonight, so.
So if you would be as kind to talk through this $1.8 million grant application for the Water Street Bike Boulevard, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. So this boulevard will run the length of Water Street from Fairview Avenue in the south to Harrisburg Pike in the north. The project includes a mix of shared on-street bike facilities and a half-mile portion that will be off-road. It will include intersection improvements along the length of Water Street with such things as raised intersection speed humps, bump-out curb extensions, ADA compliant ramps, piano key crosswalks, and rapid flashing beacons. Three intersections in one segment along Water Street are in the high injury network, which I bet you can guess which intersections they are, as were identified in the city's Vision Zero plan. The project also incorporates green infrastructure to manage stormwater and reduce our combined sewer overflows, and it will also include some public art to highlight the stream that previously ran along Water Street, which is now enclosed into a very large sewer pipe under the street. So we currently have $3,100,600 committed in federal grants through PennDOT and $725,000 in bond funding. This additional grant request would cover the final amount needed for the project.
That's wonderful. I guess my only comment is I applaud the Public Works Department in the city for being so proactive and looking for grant funding for projects such as this. Is there any questions from other committee members?
Yes, please, Councillor. What is the expected timeline for this project, Mayor?
I would have to get back to you about that, Counselor. I think with this, if this is the final piece of funding and we're submitting the grant now, I'm going to guess that we will not be notified about grant funding until at least the end of this calendar year. And then for mobilizing and the construction, I wouldn't imagine that it would start before next spring when the weather turns again. That's my educated guess, and I can get back to you for sure.
Right, and are there any other organizations or, involved in the execution of the project?
There have been numerous community outreach meetings along the corridor of Water Street with businesses and residents to discuss improvements, to refine the plans. I myself have met with a couple of businesses to review what their needs are related to turning radius for trucks that have deliveries. And this has been an ongoing community engagement effort, I think, for at least 2 years.
Have you got any feedback or any input from the community?
Lots. And we've taken that feedback and made refinements to the plan, as well as incorporated some other elements that they were looking for.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any questions or comments from council? From the public?
There we go. I don't think it was on before. Is this a competitive grant?
Yes,
So may or may not get the funding?
correct. They usually always are. Except for Burn Justice Grant, which we'll hear about later. I think there's like two grants that we receive that aren't competitive.
Without any further questions, I'll make a motion to move this to full council on August 8th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. So moving right along to Resolution 52, 2023, authorizing a grant application for South Duke Street pedestrian safety improvements. Mayor, will you be taking this as well?
I will, thank you. So South Duke Street, we're applying for $500,000, as you mentioned, from the DCED Keystone Communities Grant Program. This again is also for pedestrian safety and streetscape improvements along South Duke Street. These improvements will run from Church to Chesapeake and will include also curb bump outs, providing new crossings for pedestrians, a shared use side path to separate bikes from vehicular traffic, upgrades to the existing sidewalks and pedestrian lighting, as well as a new bus shelter. The project will also incorporate green infrastructure and sewer separation to reduce stormwater flow into the city's combined system. And you did hear from Molly when she came to do a presentation about the city's stormwater projects and the emphasis on incorporating stormwater management into all of our capital projects. And these are just two more examples which directly relate to stormwater improvements and pedestrian improvements. One of the major things that we heard from residents very specifically was about lighting along South Duke Street, as well as because Martin Luther King Elementary School is so, is a fixture on South Duke Street, and there's a lot of kid traffic. How are we improving the safety of the intersection at North and South Duke? So these are improvements that, again, have been thoroughly vetted by the neighbors to understand, what works, what doesn't work for them, and how to make South Duke Street less of a throughway and more of a neighborhood street.
One question, where is the bus shelter that will be?
I would be guessing at this point where a new bus shelter would be, but there is a bus shelter currently, I believe, at right by the Boys and Girls Club at that intersection of Dauphin. Is that New Dauphin and South Duke? So that might be the new one, but I'm not sure. I can get back to you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from committee members? Council? The public? All right. Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to move this to full council on August 8th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the committee agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Walsh. We move to the Community Planning Committee. That will be handled by Councilor Arroyo this evening.
Thank you, Council President. We have 2 items on the agenda for community planning this evening. The first one is the review of the Historical Commission recommendation for the Milburn Apartments LLC project at 609 Rockland Street. This recommendation was for approval, meeting the appropriate and meets the following standards for the SISR number 1. I believe we have some representatives from the Milburn Apartments LLC here who could speak on the project.
How much of a presentation?
Brief summary should be fine.
Are we on? Yeah, we're on. Good evening, council members, mayor. Thank you for hearing us out tonight. I'm Rick Walker, Envision Architecture, architect of record for the project. With me is Chad Martin, chairman of the board of Chestnut Housing Corporation. The Chestnut Housing Corporation purchased 2 properties at 607 and 609 Rockland Street. Those properties, if you're aware, were severely damaged by fire in 2020. They're currently looking to renovate those, basically rebuild 609, but renovate 607, maintaining the Historical Commission facades is an important concern for low-income housing, which I will let Mr. Martin further get into. Architecturally, we're replicating many of the historical standards in the area. For 607, 609 was basically a 1986 building, which really is not historical to that extent. The fire damage was significant, and we're proposing to demolish 609 and reconstruct it to current energy standards, safety standards, structural requirements, and such situations like that. 609 would have 6 units in it. 607 would have 2 units in it.
Thanks, Rick. And I'll just add a reminder to you all, council, that you all awarded an ARPA award toward this project, probably, what was that, maybe 9 months or so ago. We have also received a commitment of home funding from the joint funding opportunity from the city and Lancaster County. And as you may recall, these properties were purchased from the City Redevelopment Authority. And as Rick indicated, all 8 units will be affordable housing, targeting households below 50% of area median income, and specifically with a preference for folks who've experienced homelessness. So we're thrilled to be moving forward with the project. We're very close to having it fully funded, expect to begin construction in November, and hope to have, our plan is to have all the financing in place at the same time. So we're very appreciative of our partnership with the city on this project and the opportunities you've provided to make this happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, remind me, we don't need to take a voting action on this. This moves
It
forward
automatically
to.
goes to the agenda.
Oh, great. So, great. Well, I look forward to hearing or putting up this for a vote at the next regular council meeting. The next item on the agenda for tonight, Administration Resolution Number 55, 2023, authorizing an application for Emergency Solutions Grant Funds for the Homelessness Services. I believe we have someone here to speak on that. Hello.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you, Bernie. So my name is Simone Dia. I'm a Community Development Administrator for the City of Lancaster. And as an applicant for ESG funding, we are required by DSED to include a resolution authorizing the application for supplemental ESG funding. And the purpose of this presentation is to seek that resolution. In my presentation, I will provide a brief outline of the funds that we intend to seek and for which activities that will be associated with those funds, and articulate any public comments that we received during the public meeting which took place prior to this council meeting. Next slide. So my team is made up of myself, Craig Walt, who is the Bureau Chief of Lead Safety and Community Development. Also, my colleague, Bryn McGowan, who is a CDA for CDBG block grant, and also Chris Delfs, Director of the Division, and Rebecca Geiser, the Deputy Director. Advance. So in order to pursue these funds, the city has an obligation to collaborate with the Lancaster County Housing and Redevelopment Authority, as well as the Lancaster County and Homelessness Coalition, to pursue this ESG funding for a number of reasons. One, we know that there is an increasing need for homelessness services and supports. And while we were not a recipient for the past 2 years of ESG entitlement funds, we are going after these funds, obviously, to address those gaps in services that exist in our community and to support our local nonprofit organizations. We also believe that we're being very ambitious in our pursuit for these funds. Because we believe that if we don't at least try, there is no opportunity for us to get funding for these very vital programs that exist in our communities. And it also helps maintain the continuity of essential care, essential homelessness services like emergency shelter, street outreach, and homelessness prevention. Next slide. Now, while this is an exhaustive list of all of the eligible categories that can be funded with ESG monies, the city is only pursuing grant funds for the first 4 categories: emergency shelter, street outreach, homelessness prevention, and administration. HMIS, or otherwise known as Empower Lancaster, is being managed and absorbed by the county, and rapid rehousing is actually not one of our main priorities at this time. Next slide. These agencies that have been depicted on the screen are agencies that we've identified as city-based partners that provide homelessness services within the eligible ESG categories. Most of our partners have focused on one primary activity, while other partners have chosen to pursue funding for various programs. Next slide. The city has in total requested $750,000 to address these particular categories: homelessness prevention, emergency shelter and street outreach, and also administration. We are capped at 60%. We cannot request more than 60% for both categories, street outreach and emergency shelter. And the breakdowns are outlined on the screen. 60% of $750,000 is coming in at $450,000 for emergency shelter and street outreach, 36.25% for homelessness prevention, and a 3.75% amount for administration. Next slide. So we did conduct a public meeting just before this council meeting took place. Give me 1 second. And we did get a few questions as it related to what we are hoping to achieve should we be approved for this funding. We received questions pertaining to whether or not these funds would be exclusively tied to city-based projects, which they are, and for how long would this period of performance take place, and that would be for 18 months after the notice of the award is disseminated. We were asked about the competitiveness of the funding, whether it was competitive or not. It is. And lastly, the total amount that was awarded to the Commonwealth, which was a little over, pretty close to $5.8 million. So, next, Vance. I think we're at the end of this presentation. Any questions?
Great. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Dia.
Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? I guess that's just us, or full council.
No question, but just a comment. I think it's really interesting that a member of the public asked about the total amount from the state or given to the state, and $5.8 million spread around 67 counties is not a lot. So that's interesting. We have some questions maybe out there.
Any questions from the public? Well, with that said, I'll motion to move resolution number 55, 2023 to full council.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the Community Planning Committee. Council President?
Thank you very much, Councilor Arroyo. Before you wrap up, I'm not sure if you have any information on the comprehensive plan process. I do have that if you don't have that in front of you. Okay, it is tangential to community planning, so I'll just briefly mention in this area of the meeting that City Planning Commission held the first of 3 public meetings to review the draft comprehensive plan. That was back on July 19th. The next 2 meetings will occur tomorrow, August 2nd, and again on Wednesday, August 16th. And community members are encouraged to attend to voice support for parts of the plan, recommend any changes they'd like to see. And then following that meeting, city staff is planning to publish the final comprehensive plan and share it formally to the county and neighboring municipalities, which they're required to do. And then after a 45-day review period, there will be a public hearing and it should come before council. So just as a preview of where we're going with the comprehensive plan. Thank you. We now move to the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Walsh, you'll be handling that this evening.
Thank you, Council President. This evening, we have one item on the agenda, which is Administration Resolution 56, 2023, authorizing an application for the Burn Justice Grant funding. And I believe we have Captain Sook, who can talk a little bit further about what the grant is and why Lancaster City is being awarded.
Okay, thank you. Councilors, Mayor, thank you for your time. We are applying for the Justice Assistance Grant, GAG allocation. This is an annual allocation. The amount for this year for 2023 is $52,284. We will use this funding to purchase cell phone extraction equipment and training for several detectives, acquire an updated polygraph system to replace outdated equipment, purchase a license plate reader license, and purchase individual first aid kits for the officers. This annual allocation goes to the city and county as a disparate jurisdiction. The county has agreed that the city will receive the total allocation of funding, and the MOU, I believe, with the county is included in the meeting packet.
Great, thank you. How do you, it has mentioned here that the amount of very specific 52,284 is, the allocation is based on population and statistics and those types of things. Can you talk a little bit more about how Lancaster City fares in relation, I don't know if this is a big amount or a small amount as it relates to your needs?
Okay, yeah, so this is it's a formula that's just basically given to us, so we're set, sorry, I'm still getting used to reading glasses. So it's basically set by, I believe, the state that comes to us. So, for example, in York is on here, and they got a similar amount to what we did. Allentown got very similar within a few $1,000s. Some smaller areas got in the $10,000 range. So I don't know the exact method behind the formula, but it's basically when the grant is released, and this is something that we've gotten every year that I can recall. When the grant is released, it's a formula and we're told what the amount is, and then there's certain parameters that we have to meet that we can use the funds for, but we have some discretion as far as what we want to do with that.
Sure. And has that amount increased or decreased over the years?
It's stayed right around that. It's been right around that amount.
Thank you.
Maybe gradual increases, but.
That's very helpful, and it sounds like you'll put it to good use if awarded. Any other questions from committee members? From council?
Thank you, Councilor. How will the utilization of these funds and the progress of the project will be tracked or reported?
So for the cell phone extractions, for the polygraphs, there's reports done every time they're utilized. We document all uses of that. The cell phone extractions, we currently have a device that we use, and it's been a critical instrument that's been used by our department in investigations. We've used it in violent crime, homicides, robberies. We've used it in a lot of our crimes against children cases. I worked in our special investigations unit for years, and we've had some very successful prosecutions brought for child abuse, child pornography cases through the utilization of the cell phone extraction equipment. And then the polygraphs as well. We use them in criminal cases and also in our background investigations. So anytime they're utilized, there'll be a report completed for those.
And are there any mechanism in place to ensure transparency, accountability?
Yeah, so with the cell phone extractions, we have to have legal recourse to do that. We either have to have consent or a search warrant. And the search warrants are all approved by the county district attorney's office. So there is accountability we can't just take someone's phone randomly and search it. We have to have legal recourse for that.
Could you highlight the benefits of the project for the community?
Yeah, so, I mean, for the cell phone extractions, with helping to solve violent crime, helping to get child predators off the street and bring successful prosecutions is a huge benefit to the community. For the polygraph, we use that to give us, we can't use polygraphs in court, but it gives us direction in criminal investigations. It's also very useful in background investigations. We background every officer candidate, and we've weeded out candidates who shouldn't be police officers. So that helps the community as well by giving us accountability in who we hire and making sure that they can pass that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Any questions from the public? Thank you, Captain Zook.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to move Administration Resolution 56, 2023 to full council on August 8th.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And that concludes the public safety agenda.
Thank you very much. We now move to the Committee of the Whole. We have several items this evening. The first is Administration Resolution Number 53, 2023, approving a grant application for Home Rule Study Commission expenses. My understanding of this is that DCED makes grants available for projects such as our Home Rule Study Commission. And this resolution is designating the officials who can execute the documents and agreements for the grant. And we're also allocating funds from the budget to cover those expenses. Mayor Sirachi, can you tell us any more about that? Are you here for that this evening?
That was pretty much it.
Terrific. I think it's 120, an amount not to exceed $126,500. Is that correct?
Yes, and as you know, this is, as you said, a matching fund to assist municipalities experiencing financial difficulties. It is an effort to help communities like Lancaster continue to sustain themselves. We've received two previous STMP grants in the past, one in 2019 and one in 2022. I would just note that given the timing of this, and in deference to the Home Rule Study Commission as an independent body, they are continuing to refine their budget. And we have taken typical fees and created a budget that we believe is going to be aligned with theirs, but they're still working on the final budget. That all that is to say is that we would be able to submit an amended budget to DCED when the Home Rule Study Commission has adopted their budget officially. But because of timing, we want to make sure that we get at the top of the list, because right now the state, as you know, is in a midst of a budget impasse and no grants are being made, but we need to make sure that we get our grant in for when a budget is finally passed so that there's time to review and hopefully approve this.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. And we definitely want to give the Home Rule Study Commission all of the tools that it needs to do good work in this time. Are there any other council comments on this resolution?
Council President.
Councilor Walsh.
Mayor, can you describe what sort of activities this amount will cover? Like, what are
Sure.
these dollars being used for the study?
Yes. First and foremost, they're covering professional services related to the hiring of the Pennsylvania Economy League to facilitate the process with the Home Rule Study Commission. They're going to provide costs related to legal support, costs related to the city clerk, costs related to any financial analysis that is to be completed by PFM, which did our previous multi-year financial analyses. We've got printing and copying expenses, advertising costs, because Mr. Harris needs to advertise all of the meetings for the Home Rule Study Commission, some miscellaneous supplies, modest administrative expenses, and a portion of the audit, because we do need to audit these expenses as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the public on the resolution? Okay, I'll make a motion to move resolution number 53 to our next full meeting on August 8th.
Second?
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item for the committee of the whole is resolution number 54. This is approving a raising of the Puerto Rican Heritage Month flag at City Hall. The flag raising is scheduled for November 13th with a rain date of November 14th. And then this was, of course, coming to us per our process of approving flags that are being raised at City Hall, having to submit an application to do so at least 120 days in advance. So this one got in that time frame. Any council comments on the resolution from the public? I'll make a motion to move this to full council on August 8th.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. We now move to Administration Bill Number 9, 2023, approving a broadband franchise agreement. Mr. Handwerker is here this evening, and I suspect you'll also be talking to us about our next item, Resolution 57, approving an agreement for city fiber network use.
Well, we asked, as to number 3, we had asked council remove this from its agenda this evening as it was a little premature. We need the resolution to go forward first. If the agreement is ultimately approved, then the franchise agreement will be finalized and come back to council.
Great. So the bill this evening we will not be taking up.
Correct.
All right, we will take that off, and we will discuss Resolution Number 57 with you, Mr. Handwerker.
Well, thank you. On April 3rd, we introduced Shentel to you and advised that we wish to award them a contract to construct a fiber optic network in Lancaster. We're here following up on that. We advised you that, we would then enter into discussions and negotiations with Shentel to prepare a comprehensive agreement. Chris Kyle, the vice president of Shentel, has made the 4.5 hour trek to get up here tonight to confirm what I'm about to tell you, which is, and what you've received is, we have a completely negotiated agreement for you this evening. I'm pleased to put before you this negotiated agreement. And while you have it in front of you, I would like to summarize some of the pertinent points from this 31-page document. First, Shentel will be designing, building, operating, and maintaining a fiber to the premises network capable of delivering gigabit services to all residences in the city and the entirety of the downtown area. The network will assure upload and download speeds of 1,000 Mbps, which will be upscaled as industry standards change during the 40-year term of this agreement. And again, that's 40 years that we're guaranteed to have fiber serving city residents and the city. Shentel will assume responsibility for maintaining the city's existing fiber system, but will not receive ownership of it. In other words, the city will own it, Shentel will maintain and operate it, and the city will be able to continue utilizing a number of strands of that service, of that fiber for its existing, for city services. The city will have up to a right to utilize up to 24 of those strands. It's anticipated that there will be mostly 12 in most places. We'll be doing an audit post-execution to confirm usage throughout the use of that fiber. Most importantly, this network will be constructed at no cost to the city, and all responsibility for dealing with any issues related to the installation of the city's existing fiber will be borne by Shentel. Shentel will complete construction of the network within 3 years. During construction, a few things are going to happen that I think are relevant for city and resident concerns. First, Chantel is responsible for coordinating with all permitting authorities, utilities, and pole owners in advance of and during construction. Prior to construction, Chantel is to provide the city with a project plan containing milestones and timelines, a schedule for regular collaboration with the city, a program with verifiable objectives for hiring of city residents, and a protocol for notices to residents prior to construction. As part of this, they're going to develop with the city a communications plan, including how complaints can be registered, weekly transmittal of complaints and other information from residents to the city, and a requirement that good faith efforts be made to resolve all complaints within 10 business days. Chantel will also be providing quarterly construction reporting to the city, having more detailed construction information. Chantel will promote its services throughout the service area and will offer rates consistent with services it provides in other areas of PA, and will include service costing of no more than $30 per month for low-income subscribers who meet the requirements of the Affordable Connectivity Program. If they meet those requirements, that's a net zero cost to those residents. Chantel is committed to local hiring and diversity and will establish and implement general equity principles in determining the order of neighborhoods in which to construct, repair, and remediate. And again, the phasing and construction plan is to be coordinated with the city. Prioritize hiring of city residents with respect to the construction, operation, and maintenance of the network, consistent with applicable federal and state law. Provide language access options for calls to its customer service representatives, and provide marketing materials in languages other than English spoken by significant members of city residents. These are just some of the many terms obviously included in the 31-page agreement. This was a summary of the ones I thought council would find most pertinent and were consistent with the presentation made in April. I also note that this agreement has been negotiated and completely vetted by our outside telecommunications council, and that it is consistent with the RFP the city issued, which started the discussions with Chantel going on over a year ago now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Handwerker. I don't have any additional questions at this time, but I want to thank you and everyone who was involved in this for being thoughtful about the agreement and all of those things that you mentioned, including language access and complaint processes and just, dotting the I's and crossing all of the T's that I'm sure a lot of people have concerns about. And I think this is an extremely exciting project. Mayor Suarez, do you have anything to add at this time?
I just want to thank Chris from Chantel for your due diligence in seeking, in getting all of the questions that we all had answered, and for the time and energy that it took to do the assessment of the existing fiber and all of the things that come with it to get us clarity in terms of a starting point. I will also say that there's some pretty clear milestones that are included in this agreement related to planning, which Solicitor Handwerker mentioned, but that will be something that there'll be more news about. So as we have a sense of how the build out will progress, we'll be coming back to share that with council and the public. I'll just say, reflecting on this, from the moment, the first day that I took office in 2018 until this day, figuring out how to create a path to achieve our vision of ensuring high-speed, affordable broadband for all in the city of Lancaster has been a focus, and with council's assent to this agreement, we will be moving a giant step forward, and in 3 years, this ubiquitous, necessary infrastructure will be available to every household in the city.
Amazing. Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, any comments or questions at this time? Councilor Kleist?
Thank you, Madam President. What is the impact of this project on the community? Has the community been informed about the project?
Well, this project's been ongoing for, as the mayor said, since 2018,
Okay.
with multiple presentations before city council. multiple opportunities in our engagement process to discuss it. Most importantly, what this provides is a fiber optic opportunity for broadband to all residents of the city of Lancaster. And quite frankly, there's not a lot of communities in the country that can say that, to have 100% coverage to all residents. So the ability to have fiber optic broadband service, it's a rarity and a real honor for Lancaster to be in a position to provide that.
I believe we'll be the first in the state to have 100% coverage within our municipality. I'm going to look to Mr. Stuhldreher to check me on that. I would also just add that one of the things that became abundantly clear out of the pandemic was the digital divide that separated communities, lower income communities, communities of color who did not have access to high-speed internet, who were unable to access, their education, healthcare, jobs, et cetera. And closing this divide following the pandemic became a federal priority, not just one here in Lancaster. And quite honestly, we're going to beat most every community to the punch because we have been working through this process through an RFP, through a vetting process that Shentel went through to ultimately select them as our partner in rolling out this infrastructure. So I can't understate enough what a difference this will be for our community, both from an access and digital equity perspective, but also from an economic development perspective.
And will there be any increase on the cost of the service?
So one of the things that is included in the contract is a minimum offering of $30 per month, which could be offset to zero based on the Affordable Connectivity Program. And that program is a federal program. And if you are living in subsidized housing or there's a long list of criteria, you automatically qualify. And that means that your access to the internet would be free. You can do that now. You don't need to wait for Shentel operating under Glo, the brand Glo, to access that program. But what we've done is made sure that as we're rolling this out, that we're educating the public more about this program and that they would be able to access. As it relates to their other rates and fee structures, I think there's some things in the contract that has them telling us what they are and that they have to be on par with costs in the surrounding areas, is how I remember the contract language. So that's TBD, and we also know that we're in a place where, assembling all the materials to do this, there could be increased costs over the next 3 years, and ultimately those rates will continue to change over time.
And will there be any disruption during the execution of the project?
I don't anticipate any disruption except for existing Land City Connect, but I'm going to leave that to Shentel to walk us through how they're going to address couple hundred of, if there is that still left.
It's less than that, and that'll be, again, dealt with post-agreement.
Yeah. So they'll work.
We have 6 to 9 months of design and construction that will have to occur, drafting of the construction and the implementation plans. All of that will impact what happens to existing users. In terms of other impact on the city, it's just the impact that construction would have, which in the city will be more minimal than in rural jurisdictions where there's a lot of underground installation. In the city, it's mostly aerial.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Cleeks. Any other comments from council? From the public?
Don't think I identified myself before, but Tim Stuhldreher, One United Lancaster.
Thank you.
In the agreement, there's a distinction made between the existing city fiber and the additional build-out that Shentel is going to do. And it says Shentel is not obliged to replace the existing network when it reaches the end of its useful life. What will happen to the existing fiber?
That will be to be determined. It is anticipated with fiber that the life expectancy is longer than 40 years. So there is no anticipation that the fiber will need to be replaced. Maintenance is what's required in the agreement throughout the term, the 40-year term.
Thank you very much, Mr. Handwerker. Hearing nothing for, sorry. I'll give you a chance to hop
I
back
don't
up.
know if it's helpful to ask all the questions at one time. I'm interested in knowing what is the relationship of the broadband franchise agreement to the agreement that is currently being discussed. Will any of the phases be open prior to the 3 years of completion? And lastly, just a technical question. Toward the end of the agreement, it says it's to be authorized by ordinance, but it looks like it's actually going to be authorized by resolution, so that
Mr. Handwerker, if you could provide clarification on
Sure.
the order of operations?
Sure. Taking them in order, this agreement will be approved by resolution. The franchise agreement, which is something required by the Federal Telecommunications Act, will be done by ordinance. The city already has a telecommunications franchise in place with Comcast. Because Shentel will be providing telecommunication services over the fiber, it will also be required to negotiate and obtain from the city a franchise agreement. The franchise agreements will cover revenues that would come from a portion of gross revenues from that Shentel receives from telecommunication services to the city. It's going to essentially mirror that of Comcast because there's an equity requirement in the federal law. So what we're getting from Comcast is essentially what we're going to get from Shentel. That ordinance will come after this agreement is finalized, as the attorneys will need to make sure that the two are actually in concert with one another. They were drafted at separate times, but the franchise agreement will be coming shortly thereafter.
Did I answer all of
There
the
was
questions?
one other one, Mr. Handwerker. Will any phases of the
Yes.
project be open for the whole
and-
thing is completed?
And the answer to that is yes. As Shentel completes its design and engineering and submits its construction and implementation plans, the goals for Shentel and the city are to what we call light the fiber as various phases are completed. That's why it was so important in the agreement to make sure that the consideration of where the builds start takes into account equity, as I indicated earlier.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to make a motion to move resolution number 57 to our full council meeting on August 8th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That concludes the committee of the whole meeting. The last item on our agenda is the clerk's report, which Mr. Harris has submitted to us in writing, so all councilors have that available to them. Having reached the end of our agenda and concluded our business, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
Thanks, counselors.
Oh, yeah.